Sparring with Kellen too.
This is my first time fighting in my true body, so give me everything you've got.
Yuan said as he beckoned Kellen.
Then, don't mind if I do.
Kellen unleashed his cultivation, but he still kept it suppressed to the peak of immortal ascension.
Here I come.
With a roar of excitement, Kellen charged forward, his fists surging with immense energy. However, Yuan didn't so much as lift a finger to defend. He stood firm, like an immovable mountain, taking every one of Kellen's strikes head-on with nothing but his bare body.
This is rather relaxing. You might have a future as a masseur.
Yuan said calmly, a faint smile on his lips. He stood unbothered, as though Kellen's blows were nothing despite each strike sending ripples through the air and making the very space around them tremble.
I refuse to believe I can't break through your defenses.
Kellen roared, his aura flaring violently as it shifted. Without hesitation, he began unleashing powerful martial techniques.
He's already using his 99 Divine Fists technique.
Chu Liuxiang exclaimed, a shiver running down his spine as memories flooded back, vivid flashes of being beaten to a pulp by that very technique. The technique comprised a total of 99 strikes, each one building in power and ferocity, much like Yuan's own 9 supreme swords.
55th Divine Fist.
Kellen bellowed as his fist crashed forward, the air trembling from the force. Yet, even after unleashing more than half of the technique, he felt no closer to breaching Yuan's defenses. It was like striking a mountain of metal with a brittle wooden branch.
99th Divine Fist.
Even after the final strike landed, Yuan wasn't pushed back even slightly. With a faintly provocative smile, Yuan turned slightly and pointed to his back.
Why don't you give the back some attention too?
He said, as if inviting a massage rather than an attack. Kellen's eyebrow twitched, a flicker of irritation crossing his face as his pride took a hit. With a slightly cold edge to his voice, he muttered,
You asked for this.
Suddenly, his suppressed cultivation surged, breaking through to the bronze immortal level. Now wreathed in swirling immortal chi, Kellen launched a renewed assault on Yuan.
22nd Divine Fist. 75th Divine Fist.
After going through another 99 strikes, Kellen distanced himself from Yuan before staring at him with wide eyes that flickered with disbelief. It's like he doesn't even feel my attacks. How is that possible? Knowing full well that Yuan possessed powerful regenerative abilities, Kellen didn't hold back and poured every ounce of immortal chi he could muster as a bronze immortal into his attacks. Yet, despite his full strength, the outcome was the same as before, utterly ineffective. Moreover, Yuan was still relying solely on his bare body to endure the onslaught. This meant no techniques and no defenses, just sheer physique. At this point, it was no exaggeration to say that he could withstand a full-powered assault from a bronze immortal in his sleep, and quite possibly sleep through it.
That wasn't bad, but it would have been better if you'd used a little more strength. How about increasing your cultivation to true immortal?
Yuan suddenly said.
True immortal. You know this is just a spar, right?
Kellen said.
And you know you won't even be able to give me a warm-up with this level of sparring, right?
Yuan responded.
What happened to wanting to experience the golden immortal physique? You're barely seeing the tip of its prowess right now.
After a moment of silence, Kellen took a deep breath and spoke in a serious tone.
Don't blame me for whatever happens next.
Kellen increased his cultivation to silver immortal, then golden immortal, finally stopping at true immortal. Yuan smiled and said,
That's more like it. Here I come.
After giving Yuan a brief moment to ready himself, Kellen sprang into motion, soaring toward him with fists infused with immortal chi and just a trace of celestial chi. Despite this, Yuan remained still. Boom! A split second later, Yuan's body was sent hurtling into the distance from the force of the blow. However, he swiftly regained control mid-air and landed gracefully on his feet, completely unharmed. The strike had possessed just enough power to send him flying, but it was still far from enough to break his defenses.
Seriously?
Kellen stared at Yuan, utterly dumbfounded. He had always assumed the legends surrounding the golden immortal physique were exaggerated. But after facing it firsthand, Kellen could say without the slightest doubt, if anything, the legends underplayed its true prowess.
So? What do you think?
Yuan asked as he calmly walked toward Kellen.
Satisfied yet?
Kellen offered a nervous smile, sweat beading at his brow.
I thought it'd be fun, but honestly, it was more terrifying than I expected.
Yuan let out a light chuckle.
Then what if I told you that my body still isn't fully merged with my soul? What?
Kellen blurted out, his eyes widening in disbelief. Yuan nodded calmly.
It's been nearly a year since I reclaimed my true body. I thought that would be enough to fully adapt, but so far, I've only managed about 50%. You're telling me that you've only shown me about 50% of your true prowess?
Kellen exclaimed.
No, I haven't even begun to show you anything yet. I'm strictly talking about my physique. If we're talking about my prowess.
Yuan abruptly stopped speaking, and in the next moment, unleashed his cultivation and immortal chi in a sudden surge, its sheer force nearly knocking Kellen off his feet.
Heavens! What is that amount of immortal chi? I have met many true immortals, but none of them can come close to having that much immortal chi.
Kellen exclaimed.
While my cultivation has fully merged and my physique is about halfway there, my bloodline and the rest of my talents have only just begun to merge. Honestly, I have no clue how powerful I will become once my true body and soul fully merge.
Yuan calmly shrugged, leaving Kellen and the others speechless. Congratulations, you have 1997 Sparring with Kellen 3.
Fuck, I have never met or heard of anyone that's even close to being as monstrous as you.
Kellen muttered after learning that Yuan was barely showing all of his potential, but was still able to make a true immortal feel helpless while only being immortal.
You know, you should join. No, I'll tell you about it later.
Kellen proceeded to take a deep breath before increasing his cultivation even further, stepping into the first level of God Ascension.
Well? Do you think you'll be able to handle the God Ascension realm?
He asked Yuan with a provocative smile.
We won't know until we try,
said Yuan.
Then here I come.
Kellen made the first move, and the two of them clashed shortly later. However, despite being in the God Ascension realm, Kellen didn't use celestial chi to directly attack Yuan, only using it to strengthen his own physique. Yet, even with the power of celestial chi, Kellen only found himself on par with Yuan, who was still only using his physique.
Why don't we fight seriously now? You can use your full cultivation, and I'll do the same.
Yuan suggested after thousands of exchanges.
Don't blame me if anything goes wrong.
Kellen responded as he unleashed his full cultivation at the 5th level of God Ascension realm. Yuan also no longer held back, and his body surged with immortal chi. God of War's Astral Arts. Yuan activated God of War's Astral Arts, perfectly controlling the avatar size to be just slightly bigger than his own frame. Since Kellen fought with his fists, Yuan decided not to use a weapon and continued fighting with his bare hands. When they clashed again, the sheer force of their blows fractured the very space around them, sending cracks rippling through the air, though the rifts swiftly mended themselves.
Ha ha ha.
Kellen roared with exhilaration as he traded blows with Yuan, his eyes flickering with delight.
This is it. This is the kind of manly fight I've been craving.
Kellen was primarily a body refiner, having honed his physique to the extreme. Few cultivators could rival him in sheer physical prowess, making battles like the one he now faced with Yuan exceedingly rare. And even when such encounters did occur, they never left him satisfied, as his opponents would fall too quickly to offer any true challenge.
I never imagined I'd experience a battle like this with a mortal. You're truly something else, Yuan. At this rate, I might really lose myself and try to kill you.
Yuan smiled at his words and said,
Kill me? I'd like to see you try.
Yuan and Kellen's battle raged on for nearly an entire month without pause. In the final days, Kellen unleashed everything he had, fighting with the intent to kill. Yet no matter how hard he pushed, the most he could achieve was tearing off a few limbs, wounds that Yuan quickly recovered from. In the end, Kellen lay sprawled on the ground, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion as he stared blankly at the endless white, his expression dazed, caught between disbelief and awe. Yuan sat on the ground, his entire body soaked in sweat. However, his breathing was calm, and his body was still surging with strength. While Kellen looked as if he had sprinted through a marathon, Yuan, by contrast, appeared as though he had merely taken a leisurely jog around the park.
Does the golden immortal physique give you unlimited stamina, as well?
Kellen suddenly asked.
No, that's something else. Something else. Just how many secrets are contained within that small body of yours? Who knows?
Yuan replied with a casual shrug. It might have come off as evasive, but in truth, he genuinely didn't have the answer.
Are you two finally done?
Wang Ming called out as he and the others approached. None of them had left during the month-long battle. They had remained there from start to finish, eyes fixed on every clash and exchange. And just from observing, each of them had gained insight, advancing their understanding and even strengthening their own cultivation in the process.
Sorry, I didn't intend on taking up so much of your time.
Kellen said to Yuan. He shook his head and said,
No, it's fine. I needed time to adjust to my new condition, too. You'll be staying at the sect, right? I'll prepare a place for you. No need. I can just live with Meihou or Lulu.
He turned to them and continued.
Are you okay with that? Of course. In fact, I was going to make that suggestion.
Chu Liuxiang said. Meihou nodded in agreement.
Okay.
Just as Kellen stood up and prepared to leave, Yuan suddenly stopped him.
Wait a minute. What is it? Don't reject this.
Yuan tapped his forehead, drawing forth a glowing orb of light. With a casual flick of his finger, almost as if launching a flicked booger, he sent the orb sailing through the air, striking Kellen squarely between the brows. Kellen trusted Yuan and didn't resist the surge of information flooding into his mind.
This is?
He cried out, his voice trembling with shock, as if he'd just seen a ghost. His expression twisted with disbelief, eyes wide and filled with utter astonishment. Yuan smiled and said,
Don't worry, it's real. Consider it a gift for taking care of my friends for the last few years.
After taking a moment to process the information Yuan had shared with him, Kellen suddenly dropped to his knees and kowtowed without hesitation.
Please.
He said with deep reverence.
Allow me to call you father. What the heck?
Shi Lang and the others stared with wide eyes, wondering what Yuan had given Kellen for him to act like this.
Rejected.
Yuan calmly refused.
Then, how about young master? No. I don't want to hear that from you. Just continue treating me normally. As you command.
Kellen shouted before jumping to his feet. He turned to look at Meihou and the others and said,
I'll be entering seclusion for a bit. You can train yourselves in the meantime, or take a break. You all deserve it.
Then, like an overjoyed child with a new toy, he skipped away, grinning from ear to ear. 1998, a week with Meihou. Once Kellen left the sparring grounds, Yuan said,
We will have plenty of time to catch up, so I'm going to take some time to rest for now. Who are you going to stay with?
Chu Liuxiang asked.
Me or Meihou?
He quickly replied.
I was going to take turns, so I would stay with one of you for a week, then switch, and repeat. That sounds good.
Chu Liuxiang nodded. She turned to look at Meihou and continued.
To make things fair, let's rock paper scissors with our eyes closed. No divine sense, either.
Meihou nodded and closed her eyes.
Rock, paper, scissors.
They opened their eyes to check the results.
Ugh. Looks like you win this one.
Chu Liuxiang sighed. Feng Yuxiang, Wan Yingying, and Yingzi decided to leave Yuan's Dantian for some fresh air and to allow Yuan some privacy. As for Yuning, she simply sealed her senses and went to slumber like usual.
I'm going to take a look around the sect with the other two,
said Feng Yuxiang.
Try not to cause any trouble.
Yuan said. Feng Yuxiang chuckled.
We're not you, young master.
Some time later, Yuan followed Meihou back to her living quarters.
I'll go take a shower first.
Yuan said as he approached the bathroom.
Wait.
Meihou suddenly stopped him.
Since it's been a while, let's go together.
In response, Yuan silently nodded with a smile on his face, and the two of them entered the bathroom together. Inside, Meihou helped Yuan wash his body like in the old times, but instead of just using her hands, she used her entire body. Over the past few years, she had devoted herself not only to cultivation, but also to tempering her physique, refining it until it neared perfection. Her body, though strong enough to deflect ordinary weapons with ease, retained a softness that was almost unreal. Her skin was also as smooth as silk, gliding effortlessly across Yuan's body with a delicate, irresistible grace. A few minutes later, Meihou washed the soap off their body.
Yuan.
Unable to restrain herself any longer, Meihou closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his in a passionate, heartfelt kiss. Though she had planned to wait until they returned to the bedroom, the longing that had simmered in her heart for years could no longer be contained, overflowing with unrestrained desire. Yuan also didn't realize how much he missed her presence and touch until they were alone. Soon, their bodies intertwined in an intense cultivation session, and Meishou's blissful voice filled the bathroom. Several hours later, they emerged from the bathroom, still unclothed, and made their way to the bedroom, where they continued to make up for the time they had long been apart, their bond deepening with every passing moment. After nearly a week of uninterrupted intimacy, the two of them lay side by side in silence, their eyes fixed on the ceiling.
How's your mother, Meifeng, doing nowadays?
Yuan eventually asked.
She's spending more time in the 9 heavens since there's not much for her to do on Earth nowadays. She even started a business as a merchant. A merchant?
Yuan raised an eyebrow at this unexpected news.
Yes.
Meihou said.
She started in the lower heavens, gradually building her influence as she ascended through each realm. Now, she's in the 4th heaven, and from what I've heard, she's become quite renowned. I see, hopefully she's not mad at me for not being around lately. Of course not. She misses you a lot and would always ask me about you whenever we encounter each other. Oh, we visit the myriad of techniques once every 2 months to catch up with each other. Yuro and the others are also there. Yuro, how is she?
Yuan asked, an air of melancholy surrounding him.
She probably misses you the most out of all of us, and she.
Meihou suddenly paused, almost as if contemplating whether to continue.
Nothing's happened to her, right?
Yuan sat up on the bed with a worried frown on his face. Meihou let out a quiet sigh before continuing.
Honestly, I haven't seen a genuine smile from her in a long time. Whenever she does smile, it always feels forced. At first, we thought someone might be causing her trouble. But according to her close friends, Xia Jingyi and Bai Lianhua, there's no such person. The real reason she's been acting that way is because she misses you.
Upon hearing those words, Yuan suddenly realized just how much he had been neglecting Yuro, something that had quietly begun the moment he first stepped into Cultivation Online and had only deepened with time. Yuan let out a heavy sigh as he covered his face with his arm.
To have caused Yuro so much pain. I've failed her as a brother. But this is mostly because of the Celestial Emperors. No.
Yuan interrupted firmly.
I can't blame the Celestial Emperor. While he may be the reason I haven't been able to return to Earth these past few years. I started neglecting Yuro long before that. This is on me, entirely.
Meihou became silent, and an awkward silence filled the room.
When's the next meeting?
Yuan then asked.
Our last meeting was a month and 2 weeks ago, so we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks. All right. In the meantime, I need to think of a way to make it up to her.
Early on the next day, Yuan washed up before leaving Meishou's living quarters to head to Chu Liuxiang's place, which was only a few steps away. When he arrived at her doorstep, Yuan gave a gentle knock. Almost instantly, the door swung open.
Welcome, darling.
Chu Liuxiang greeted him with a playful smile, dressed in a strikingly provocative outfit that left little to the imagination. Before Yuan could even utter a word, Chu Liuxiang seized his arm and pulled him inside, pressing her lips to his in a deep, eager kiss the moment the door closed behind them. 1999, a week with Chu Liuxiang.
Relax, I won't be going anywhere for the next week.
Yuan said with a smile after their kiss. Chu Liuxiang then dragged him to the bedroom.
I've been preparing for this moment.
She said.
Prepare?
Yuan asked with raised eyebrows. Chu Liuxiang nodded and retrieved several manuals from her spatial ring and proudly displayed them to him.
Those are.
Yuan's eyes widened with surprise when he read the titles on these techniques manuals. Chu Liuxiang chuckled when she saw Yuan's expression.
That's right. Dual cultivation techniques.
She proudly declared. During her spare time, she'd study these dual cultivation techniques to prepare for Yuan's return.
I haven't had the opportunity to test it out yet, so it might not be as good. However, I'll use this time to perfect them.
Without waiting any time, Chu Liuxiang began testing out her newly acquired techniques on Yuan, letting him experience a new world that even his incarnations had never experienced. A week later, Yuan and Chu Liuxiang lay beside each other on the bed, their bodies soaked in sweat and other wet substances.
So, what do you think?
She asked. Yuan smiled and said.
It's hard to explain, but if I had to describe it with one word, it'd be otherworldly.
Chu Liuxiang chuckled and said.
It was a little awkward and embarrassing at first, but I'm glad I didn't stop and continued. I was worried that I might have wasted my time learning these techniques, too.
Yuan then said.
Dual cultivation techniques, huh? I should learn a few. Did you get them from the myriad of techniques? Yes, there's a whole section just for them.
Their conversation eventually drifted to family.
Have you visited your family since what happened?
Yuan asked.
Yes, I visit them once a year now to have dinner.
Chu Liuxiang said. After a brief pause, she continued.
Have you heard about Yuro from Meihou yet? She told me. I am still trying to think of a way to make amends for being a bad brother.
He sighed.
You're not a bad brother.
Sometime later, Chu Liuxiang asked.
What are you going to do now? I'll spend the next week with the others, then meet up with Yuro at the myriad of techniques. All right.
The following day, Yuan went to seek out the others, starting with Wang Ming.
Hey, want to have a spar? I want your opinion on my current standing.
Wang Ming said, after catching up on some things. Yuan agreed, and the two of them sparred for the next 3 hours. Naturally, Wang Ming lost.
So, how much have I improved? Compared to when we first fought? It's incomparable,
said Yuan.
You've worked hard. Thanks.
Wang Ming said, with a somewhat bashful reaction.
Take this.
Yuan repeated what he did to Kellen, transferring some information directly inside Wang Ming's mind.
These are.
Wang Ming's eyes widened after realizing what Yuan had just given him.
9 supreme swords and the limitless sword domain. They're ancient sword techniques from the primordial era.
Yuan explained after giving him the sword techniques he'd acquired at Han Zixin's tomb.
I don't know what to say.
Wang Ming muttered in a dazed voice.
You don't need to say anything. Thank you.
Wang Ming bowed, feeling overwhelming with joy. Yuan left Wang Ming to meet with Shi Lang next. Just like Wang Ming, Shi Lang asked Yuan for a spar after catching up, and Yuan obliged. After their spar, Yuan shared some of the evil god spear techniques with Shi Lang. Though they were not as powerful as the sword techniques he'd given Wang Ming, they were powerful in their own right. After Shi Lang, Yuan continued to visit the members of the Demon Sealing faction, and he would give them all martial techniques that suited their fighting style.
How's Dr. Wang these days?
Yuan asked Wang Xiaoying.
He's getting old, but because he started cultivating, his health and energy have never been better.
She chuckled.
You know, he asks me about you often.
Yuan smiled and said,
It's a pity I haven't been able to see him for a long time now. The next time I visit Earth, I'll definitely give him a visit.
Sometime later, Yuan retrieved a glass vial that contained a pill inside and offered it to Wang Xiaoying.
I don't really have anything alchemy-related besides this Tier 8 pill I acquired from the Azure Dragon clan. Take it. Wow. Are you sure?
Wang Xiaoying stared at the blue and green pill with excitement. This was her first time seeing a Tier 8 pill, much less having one.
I gave the others martial techniques, but I won't be able to give you any techniques.
Wang Xiaoying shook her head and said,
I don't need any techniques. As an alchemist, I only need to refine my flames and improve my knowledge, and I have acquired enough information from the myriad of techniques to last me many years.
By the time Yuan visited almost everyone in the Demon Sealing faction, a week had passed, and it was time to visit Yuro and the others at the myriad of techniques. However, most members of the Demon Sealing faction chose to stay behind, claiming they wished to study the techniques Yuan had shared with them. Of course, that was merely a convenient excuse. In truth, they didn't want to intrude on his time with Yuro and quietly decided to give him space. In the end, only Meihou and Chu Liuxiang followed Yuan to the myriad of techniques.
There's actually a myriad of techniques located within the sect.
Chu Liuxiang revealed as they left together. Chu Liuxiang and Meihou led Yuan to the outer court, where disciples moved about, tending to their own affairs. Nearly all of them, regardless of gender, possessed impressively muscular builds.
Who's that with the untouchable fairies?
The disciples quickly took notice of Yuan's group, though it was Meihou and Chu Liuxiang who drew the most attention. Their reputation within the sect had soared to incredible heights thanks to their unique status and the fact that they were personally trained by none other than Kellen,